What's up guys, Dennis here, back with a new video. Today's topic is, in times of great uncertainty, surrender yourself to your intuition. So this is a topic that I wanted to touch on, sort of relating back to my last video yesterday. Because intuition is sort of like a big part of choosing your life path and sort of deciding where you want to go. And I often feel like nowadays, generally speaking, a lot of people don't really rely on their intuition as much. Like nowadays, I hear a lot of people talk about, creating pros and cons lists for like each decision that they make. And I've like tried methods like that of sort of like writing the pros and cons down of things, but it didn't really ever work in my favor. Like I would write stuff down, the pros and cons of a decision, but it really wouldn't lead me or finalize any decision. Like it didn't make me realize anything that I didn't already know about the subject. And so I think that in times of uncertainty, when things aren't so clear, when things, the path forward, I guess, or like to you in this moment isn't, laying out before you, clearly, let's just say that. I think deep down you know what the correct decision is, just intuitively. And I think that is because, the self within you that is sort of watching you make decisions, the self that is behind your thoughts and your emotions, that's where your intuition sort of comes from, I believe. Like, I don't think that, who you are is your thoughts and the emotions that sort of rush through your head and go through your mind. In fact, like when what I found through meditation is that, those thoughts are sort of like a byproduct of something else. And when you sort of meditate and you sort of see these thoughts across in your mind, you realize that it's not you, it's not the true you. And so I think that your intuition comes from, let's just say, your higher self, I think. And that's why it's so important to somebody to listen to. Especially in times when things are uncertain and, and like your thinking mind doesn't exactly know what to do, but your instincts do. And I wanted to tell a story about this actually, again from college and from college tennis. So if someone's new who's watching this, I played tennis at UNC for my last 2 years of college, and for my first 2 years I was technically a manager of the team. And I was a avid tennis player growing up. I won my high school state championship in singles, and I was like a pretty good player, but nowhere sort of near the normal D1 level to play at the top of the game in college sports. And similar to going off the last video, there was a time when I was about a year and a half, or just a year into college really, like let's just say that I was like firmly deciding that I wanted to play college tennis. And after not making the team after my first year, I was seriously considering what to do because I really wanted to play college tennis. And if I wasn't able to play at UNC, then I wanted to maybe consider going somewhere else to try and pursue that. And I sort of had that thought in my head about pursuing college tennis at a different school and possibly transferring. And that's sort of what I explored beginning in fall of my sophomore semester, fall 2022 to be exact. And I started talking to a few schools, a few mid-tier D1 schools because I was able to rack up some tournament wins in that fall against some pretty good players, and who were like D1 level, and I felt like that I belonged there, and that I deserved a chance to play Division 1 tennis somewhere if it wasn't going to be at UNC. And so I began the process of talking to coaches, and I quickly realized that I wasn't really sure if I wanted to transfer at all. Just thinking about, losing credits, going to a new school, leaving friends behind, leaving my family behind. And also, cost of tuition would have been way more expensive as well. And so when it sort of hit me, the reality of things, I sort of instinctively knew that that was not what I wanted. And throughout this whole time, I was sort of making myself suffer. I was like journaling about it. I was writing down pros and cons of each school, just the pros and cons of transferring as a whole, what I was leaving behind. And like it sort of went on for a few months where I just didn't know what to do. I had no idea where I was going to be that following school year, and the path really wasn't really shown out to me. However, I do believe that with time, things become clear. Even though maybe right this second, your intuition and your thinking mind are sort of battling each other, I do think that with time, it will come to a consensus in your head, and that you will begin to realize that your instincts were sort of right all along. And that was sort of what happened here. There came a time when it was somewhat realistic that I was going to be able to earn a spot on the team for my junior year. And I was still talking to these coaches, and quickly it sort of fizzled out, because I sort of realized that all I wanted to do was play at UNC no matter what. And that was what I wanted. That was like the number one goal I had, and I felt like if I put everything I had into it and I failed, then too good, it just wasn't meant to be. But if I go all in on it and I succeed, it will be one of the greatest accomplishments of my life so far during that time. And that was what I decided. I decided to stay at UNC, keep going with my original goal, and it worked out. So with that being said, I think that's the main key point of this video, is that when your mind is sort of in different place, when your mind is in a different place, you have different paths laying out in front of you. Your intuition, I think, intuitively knows what you should do. And I think that we need to listen to it a little bit more. And most importantly, we can't let suffering happen just because of the what if scenarios that we create in our heads. And to sort of believe in yourself and trust in time that things are going to work out in your favor, that you will make the right choice. You sort of need to have the inner confidence when it comes to leading your life, especially when times are tough. Things aren't the best that they were, or even your security in your position isn't great. That's when I think that's a time when you really have to believe in yourself, trust your intuition, and recognize the fact that you are more than just your thoughts. Because those thoughts when I was sort of I was sort of plagued with the ideas of transferring, and that plagued my mind for months because it was uncertain. I wasn't secure in my future. But you have to be okay with that sometimes. You have to be okay with the struggle bus. You have to be okay with the uncertainty. And you just have to believe that you will make it through no matter what, because this is who you are. So that's the end of this video. I think that was the good stopping point. With that being said, yeah, peace. I'm out.